Kendra Edwards, and welcome to the CarDon Resource Hub. And we're excited that you're joining us today. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today with Knute. And I'm going to have him introduce himself. But this is just a topic and something that we've been searching for a long time to have an expert come and talk about. Driving with seniors, it's such an emotional, hard conversation, and one that never know how to start that conversation. It's hard to know when to have it. And what are those things? Because there's so much that goes into that piece of independence for seniors. I know it's really difficult. So I'm going to turn it over to Knute to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his company and what services he provides.
Great. Thanks for the invitation. Knute Rotto, Senior Care Authority. I own the business here in town. I'm relatively new to the space. I'm what I call a senior care navigator, which is where I help families navigate the senior space, all the different resources that are available. And probably my bread and butter is helping them find that next living place for them from when they say they're done with their house or they're done with their apartment or condo and they need some more assistance. I help them guide them throughout all of the kind of central Indianapolis area where there are many, many communities, including CarDon. So a lot of choices, a lot of options, and it's quite overwhelming for them as they begin that journey. So that's where I'm at. It's a no-cost service to them. And that opportunity then presents themselves with just a person to guide them through kind of that next level, that next journey. And oftentimes they're not ready to move, so maybe we'll do some age in place and find that kind of in-home services that they need, or maybe it's a day service that they want to look at first and kind of ease them into that, which also gets to this next topic, which is the driving issue, because that's such a hot topic for them.
Well, I love that you help them overall, which is all of the services, because it's something that I've been doing this for a really long time, but I try not to take for granted that decision. When you're starting out, you don't even know what resources are out there. You don't know what to look for, what kinds of things to look for, and it can feel really overwhelming. You hear all of these words and all of these things that come natural to us that have been doing it for a long time. But to step back and really think about as you see or hear opportunities. So I am really grateful and thankful that there are people like you out there that are helping seniors navigate that, be a resource, help them figure out what really is the best for them, because there's not just one thing that's perfect for everybody. Everybody's at a different stage of their journey, and what is important to them and what really is just wrapping around that support to keep people as independent as possible for as long as they can stay in their environment.
Thank you. I mean, it's a challenge. I have two very independent in-laws living right across the street. So we are, as I say, aging in place stubbornly. They are not ready to move anywhere, and so that provides us with that opportunity to kind of care give 24/7, and see I'm living and breathing it, and that's just a constant challenge. So they're a good reflection for me every day about, okay, what is that person who's calling me to say, help, I need some decisions. And my goal is to help them before they get into a crisis, before they're sitting in the ER or a rehab center and say, hey, I have 48 hours, I have to find a place. I mean, I would hope that we actually have plans ahead of time. So trying to reach the adult kids, trying to reach the seniors beforehand, and really have that conversation so that a crisis isn't a crisis. It's an opportunity for them to kind of create or build their plan or have their plan already in place, and then we just take a look at it and tweak and kind of move forward. So yeah, it's been an exciting run. Just a great opportunity, and there are a lot of complexities to the senior world. So me personally understanding them is going to only help everybody else and try to figure out what is available to everybody.
Such great advice not to wait until there's a crisis, because then it becomes even more overwhelming and time sensitive, and you're having to make choices 24 hours, 48 hours. It's a lot, and having a plan in place and already having some things there for you is a really good thing. So tell me a little bit. I'm super excited to hear about your driving assessment and how you utilize that. And just kind of tell us a little bit about that, because I think it's such an incredible resource that is probably pretty underutilized when people are in that situation.
Yeah, it is underutilized, and I don't think people are aware of it. And it's not something that I've done a lot yet to promote, just because people are, first of all, having the conversation about driving is just a super sensitive issue, and so kind of letting that go, very complex. And look, I'm going to own it. As of last night at 9 o'clock, I was having a conversation with my father, who's up in Minnesota, macular degeneration, can barely see in front of him, but he thinks he's the best driver in the world. And I'm just like, how do you refute that? My brother and sister and I don't agree, and we think that he's a high risk, high liability, and but don't tell him that. So there's that defensiveness and there's that peace. So I'm living that. I'm living the same peace. Just because I help navigate doesn't mean my world is perfect. I'm equal in the struggle. I'm equal in this journey together. So how did we get to it's called Beyond Driving with Dignity. And so Senior Care Authority is a large franchise organization. They've been around for 15 years. They started in California. And about 2008, the owners found a gentleman over in Ohio. Actually, his name was Matt, and he was a retired Ohio State trooper. And he was just retired, and he said, I still have some juice in me. I want to give back. And what was the thing that tugged at his heart the most, along with his aging parents, was he he said the worst thing that I ever had to do with my job is to walk up to somebody's door and say, your family member has been in an accident, they've passed. And what he saw was that many of those fatalities were elder and seniors. And his real concern was, is there a way that I can help prevent that? And so in Matt's kind of Ohio way, he built a platform that said, I'm going to do these assessments and help families and help the seniors kind of come to some either understanding on their own through a self-assessment. I'm not going to get them behind the wheel and test them. I'm not going to make them pass and fail. What I want to do is really have a conversation, use their dignity, understand that independence and dignity and that self-respect and self-care is real critical to them. So how do I do that in the best, most gentle way possible? So kind of in the Midwestern way, I say he built this platform, and then Senior Care Authority kind of merged with him in probably 5 years ago, I think. And so at that point, now all of our organization, or every business that's under the umbrella, which there are 80 of us across the country, are able to use this resource. And this resource is it's kind of a 2.5 to 3 hour protocol where we actually go through some validated tests, like the mini mental status exam, clock drawing, the Snell-Grove maze, road sign knowledge, observing, having a conversation about their kind of ADLs, sleep, meds, social engagement. We actually walk them out to their car to check and see, how does it fit? How does it look? Can they really grab the steering wheel? What does that look like? And so then with that, there's within the conversation we have. So those are the kind of test pieces, but then the rest of it is a conversation. What's your life been like? Tell us some stories about your life and who you are. What's your world been? Where did you work? What are you looking at now? What's your independence? How do you feel like your driving is? I mean, so weaving their life stories with the driving, with their kind of worldview of who they are. And then it typically guides into that less level. And, we're not a surprise to them. They know clearly we're coming. They know we're going to have this conversation. We're going to talk about driving, but the whole thing is not about driving. It's about them and their life and who they are. And then building that assessment. I then, at the end of the conversation with them, would have a pretty good sense of, do I believe they are worthy of driving, continue to drive, or I would say they're at a high risk and you should be concerned about this. Never do I say, take the keys, we're done. That's not the ability. And I would actually ask them, I would say, after this conversation, what do you think? What are you thinking about? Where do you think your assessment is? And then I'll give my professional assessment, and they don't know me from Adam, so it's kind of a third party piece. And then at that point, depending on it, it really doesn't matter. I will write up a report, mail that information to them, mail it or email it to their family, whoever's kind of being involved with that. And then it's up to them to make that decision. And we often try to say, it might be a wise idea to retire from driving. So use it as a frame of let's retire and then offer them other solutions. So not just yank it away, but say, what other resources are there available? Do you have friends? Do you have family? Is there an Uber? Do you have, can you hire a driver? Are there resources that we can figure out to help support that? What are the things that you need to have driving for? So that's the big picture of kind of what that process looks like. I'm very familiar with, there's what's called the Brain Center here in town. And the Brain Center is staffed by occupational therapists, and they do a clinical evaluation. They do a clinical, they drive, actually get behind the wheel and drive. And, it's much more, and it's in a clinic and it's at a place. And so the difference is I'm at their home. I'm going to come and, have this conversation. I think, both work, right? And both have that ability. I feel like there's some level of, we're trying to create dignity and respect for who they are. And I think the conversation can be also a conversation starter. Maybe the senior says, I'm not going to go. I'm not done. Well, the family can use that report and say, look, there are some real concerns in here. Well, how are we going to address these? And maybe that's the conversation piece that they can have versus, Mom and Dad, I just don't think you're safe to drive, right? I mean, that's the one my sister tried the other night. And my dad was like, how dare you tell me I can't drive? I know how to drive. I can drive safer than you. You've been off the road once. I've never been off the road. I mean, it's just highly defensive, highly defended. And so how do we help them lower that pulse, lower that pace? And, what Matt has brought to us was that opportunity to, in the data that he's kept, about 65% have said, yeah, after that assessment, immediately after, they said they would retire from driving. And then another 10 to 15% kind of got there, just wasn't the immediate effect. Versus, look, somebody's going to take away your keys. And I mean, that's a whole nother dynamic, right? That's a whole nother interaction. And it's like, I don't know. I'm torn between how to do that, right? There's just the level of when do you make those decisions and how do you make that? And I'm living it right now. So yeah, I don't know that there's the right decision. Go ahead.
No, but I think it's great to have a resource. So I appreciate you sharing that because it's just good for families how to start conversations, how to do that, and even for seniors. Because I know a lot of seniors, a high percentage of them, they want to be safe into it as well, and they're not trying to. But it is part of that independence and thinking through that, and to give them some things to think about when it is time, or maybe it's not and they feel very comfortable after the assessment. So can you give me a little idea of some telltale signs that may be there to help a family know that it may be time to have a conversation or to reach out to do the assessment? Are there very specific things to look for?
Yeah, well, so if you're an iPhone user, I'd highly recommend you put find me on it and get mom and dad to allow that to happen so that you can actually track them, because when they are lost and they can't read the map and they can't know where they're going, that's typically a first beginning piece, right? Oh yeah, I'm just fine. And I'm watching them on the map and they're just all over the place. And I'm like, no, you're not going where you're supposed to go. If that church is this way, you're wrong direction. So some of the directional issues, right? Understanding how they're going. I mean, I think for me, driving with them, there's a couple times when I've been driving with them and I'm like, you can't see this. You can't make, how's your reaction time, your ability to just do a little swerve, or you see that squirrel coming and you think you really have to do a big swerve, and no, just don't even swerve, right? But the perception. And so that that's kind of basic stuff. Um, the little dings on the car, that well, I don't know where they came from. I don't know how that left bumper, right side, left side mirror scratches, just those little moments when, so you do spend some time looking at the car going, is there any damage of any kind that are unaccounted for? And clearly they won't remember, or if they do, they're not going to tell you. So you just kind of like chalk it up to one more thing. Um, yeah, kind of from a timing perspective, do they have a sense of time and direction? So the timing of, do you know how long it takes to get to a place, and if they don't get there on time or check in, and it just some of the worrisomeness, and it kind of time and direction gets all locked together, so they really are missing those points. I think those are the ones. Um, Sometimes they give themselves up when they talk about a conversation. Oh, I was at the mall today. Really? When were you at the mall? Where did you go? How did you get there? Just little things that, or I was at church today, and well, it's not typically your church day, so what was going on? Just those little moments that you go, something seems a little off. And so those are the beginning signs of, yeah, or grandkids get in the car and they're not safe. They don't want to be with grandma and grandpa, right? So then as parents, we're like, yeah, no, that's not safe either. Or I'm going to get in the car and test that out and make sure that we're all safe together. So I think your gut sets it right. And, you get the little signs and you pick up some telltale things. You have to be a little investigative, because you have to kind of guide it, because they're not going to give themselves up. They're just not. And I've had those conversations already, and they will not, absolutely not tell you anything. So that's just not that's their independence, right? They know what's wrong. They know it's not a good direction. So why would they tell you? And I get it. I'll be in that situation one day too.
100%. I know I will be as well. So all good information. How do people get access to this assessment and reach out to you? How does that all
Yep.
work? Let's give our
Yeah.
listeners.
It's super simple. You just call me, text me, email me, and say, hey, I'm looking at that. Hey, there's a precursor to this too, where I can also come in and do lunch and learns. We have some great uh, uh, kind of lunch and learn slides that we walk through driving and kind of setting the stage for that process. So I've done those at senior centers where the seniors kind of look and go, and there's quite a few that are independent at the senior center with their massive Cadillacs. And I'm like, how in the world did you park that car without scratching anybody? Or just, I don't know. So there's that audience. There's the audience that lives at home or in an apartment that, could hear it. So to me, those are some also good starting points, not just jump into an assessment, but let's do some lunch and learns, and let's do that. And I'm very willing to do that for free, just to come in and help educate people to really begin those conversations, begin those opportunities to say, have you thought about this? Have you considered this? And so I shared some data, some of the just it's real data, right? So even though the data says the seniors are some of the safer drivers because they drive slow and they wear their seatbelt, the number one cause of auto accidents is seniors dying because of their frailty of their body. So in the crash, they can't handle the crash. Um, so even though they may not have as many crashes, the death fatality is worse, right? Who knew that? But those just little tidbits that may spark somebody to say, is it worth it being on the road? Is it worth it? You can't drive at night, can't see the lines. If you look at our roads at night, some of them aren't very well lit, and like they just shouldn't be on the road. So anyway, lunch and learns, presentations to groups, to office groups, whatever, churches. I've done that, and that has been a good precursor to then people going, oh, maybe we should think about an assessment. And then Then they have to have the conversation with mom and dad. I want you to, or mom or dad. I'd like you to do an assessment. Like, I'm not going to have an assessment. Okay. So maybe it's a phone call from me for 15 minutes and we have a conversation and I'll see if I can talk them into that or if they're interested in that. But that's up to them. It's still their choice, their method.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And you're going to be a great resource for a lot of people. And I appreciate that so much. And thanks for all the information.
You're welcome. Thank you. Appreciate you letting me be on here.
Thank you.
Thanks.